A lone rider moved slowly across the dry plains, his horse's hooves pressing into the dusty earth with the weary rhythm of a man who had seen too many miles and too much hardship. The sun was falling low, painting the horizon with streaks of orange and crimson. It was then that he spotted something unusual near a patch of scrub brush. A small figure, frail and barely moving. The cowboy, known only as Samuel, pulled on the reins and dismounted. What he saw made his heart ache in a way few things ever had. A native child, no more than 10 years old, lay curled against the roots of a bush. The boy's lips were cracked, his face pale with hunger, his eyes too weak to cry. Samuel had known hunger himself during the hardest winters, but never had he seen it gnaw so deeply at someone so young. Without hesitation, Samuel lifted the child gently, as though he were carrying something more fragile than glass. The boy's bones felt like twigs beneath his clothes. Samuel whispered softly, though he knew the child might not understand his words. He laid him across the saddle and began the slow ride back to his barn, determined to offer shelter and food. That night, under the flickering light of a lantern, Samuel warmed some broth. He fed the boy in small spoonfuls, careful not to overwhelm his fragile stomach. Between sips, the child's dark eyes flickered open. There was a quiet fear in them, but also something else, a silent trust. Samuel didn't speak much. He just stayed near, making sure the boy felt safe. By dawn, the child was resting more peacefully. Samuel looked at him and wondered what cruel fate had left him starving on the plains. He thought of his own childhood, of the years when he had been left to fend for himself after losing his parents. Maybe it was that memory that made him feel such a deep responsibility. But Samuel had no idea what his act of kindness would bring. Following morning, as he stepped outside to fetch water, Samuel froze in his tracks. The rising sun revealed a sight that made his breath catch. Across the field, lined in solemn silence, stood nearly 200 native warriors. Their horses formed a long, imposing wall. Their eyes, sharp and unreadable, were fixed on Samuel's barn. Samuel's heart pounded. He knew that misunderstandings between settlers and tribes often ended in bloodshed. He wondered if they thought he had harmed the boy. His hand twitched toward his holster, but he let it fall away. To fight would mean death. To run would be useless. So he stood still, waiting, his chest tight with dread. The barn door creaked behind him, and the child appeared, unsteady on his feet but alive, with a bowl still in his hand from the breakfast Samuel had given him. At the sight, something shifted among the warriors. Their stern faces softened. One man, older and decorated with feathers, rode forward. His expression was grave, but there was respect in his eyes. He dismounted and approached. Samuel remained silent, his pulse hammering. The elder placed a hand over his heart, then gestured to the boy. Words in his native tongue followed, but Samuel could not understand. Yet the meaning was clear enough. The boy had been found. The boy had been saved. One of the younger warriors, who spoke broken English, stepped forward to translate. He told Samuel that the child was the son of a respected chief, who had been missing for days after a raid scattered their people. They had searched endlessly, fearing the worst. Now, because of Samuel, the boy was alive. The weight of the moment sank deep into Samuel's chest. He hadn't rescued the boy for recognition or reward, just because it was right. But now he was standing before a nation of people whose gratitude was as overwhelming as their numbers. The elder bowed his head slightly, a gesture of respect Samuel had never expected. For the rest of that day, the warriors camped near his land, keeping a protective watch over the boy and honoring the cowboy who had shown kindness where others might have turned away. They shared food, stories, and songs. Samuel, though an outsider, listened with humility, realizing how much he had in common with them: loss, survival, the struggle to protect those who cannot protect themselves. But the peace of that day was tested. A group of local men, hearing of the gathering near Samuel's barn, grew uneasy. They feared trouble, as old grudges and suspicions ran deep between settlers and tribes. That evening, several of them rode out, rifles ready. Samuel stepped between the two groups before words could turn into violence. His voice, steady but urgent, told the truth of what had happened: the starving child, the rescue, the gratitude of the warriors. He reminded the settlers of something they often forgot: compassion knows no boundary of color or tribe. For a long moment, the tension hung thick. But slowly, rifles lowered. The settlers, ashamed, turned back. The warriors remained calm, honoring Samuel's courage not only in saving the child, but in standing against hatred. As night fell, the boys slept soundly in Samuel's home, safe at last. The elder approached Samuel once more, placing a hand on his shoulder. He spoke words Samuel would never forget, even if he couldn't translate them perfectly. Kindness is remembered longer than anger, and the bonds forged in compassion are stronger than any weapon. When the warriors finally rode away the next morning, the field was quiet again. Yet Samuel knew his life had been forever changed. He had stood alone, but he had stood for what was right. He had bridged two worlds, if only for a fleeting moment, with nothing more than the strength of his humanity. And so, his story became more than one man's act of mercy. It was a reminder, echoing across generations, that kindness can disarm fear, that one choice can alter the course of many lives, and that even in the harshest of frontiers, compassion is the truest form of courage. That day, Samuel did not just rescue a starving child. He rescued hope itself, and in doing so, found something greater than he ever expected: the unbreakable truth that humanity, shared, is stronger than any line that divides us.